it's really, really lovely to see such a room that is full to the brim for this event on locally-led adaptation as a means to achieve gender-just climate policy and finance. And I think the scale of the audience reflects just what a thirst there is to be having the conversation about climate justice and gender equality all in the same space. My name is Debbie Palmer. I come from the UK's Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, where I'm the Director for Energy, Climate and Environment. And it's my real pleasure to be with you all today to have this conversation. This is an event which is in partnership between the UK and the Global Alliance for Green and Gender Action, known as GAGA. We've got several of their representatives in the audience. Give us a wave. It's really lovely to have you. We're so grateful for your help in putting this event together. GAGA launched in 2016, and they work to rally the collective power of women's rights, environmental and climate justice movements around the world. GAGA's vision is a world where women's rights to water, to food security, and to a clean, healthy and safe environment are recognised and respected. That sounds to me like a very worthy goal. It's not so much to ask, and yet we still have to fight every day to make this a reality. And GAGA provide financial and technical support to 460 women-led, community-based organisations in the Global South, channeling the climate finance through 26 local funds and 42 NGOs. And GAGA, extraordinarily, is present in 44 countries. So this is an organisation that is really getting down to the grassroots in lots and lots of locations. So I'm going to in a moment be inviting our minister to make a keynote address, and then we're going to open up to this wonderful group of panelists, and I'm very much looking forward to this conversation. But for now, could I please introduce the Right Honourable Annalise Dodds, who is the UK's Minister for Development and the Minister for Women's and Equalities. Please could you share with us your opening remarks?
Well, thank you all very much indeed for being here with us today for such an important event. It really is clear that women and girls so often are bearing the brunt of the climate crisis, but I'm afraid far too often we're cut out of the solutions to it as well. I am really pleased to be here as the UK's new Minister for Development and for Women and Equalities as well. And we as the UK are seeking to reset our reputation on international development, to modernise it, working hand in hand with countries from the Global South, with the environment and nature crisis at its heart, but also with women and girls put right at the heart of our approach. It's very clear that it's women and girls who so often are the ones who are displaced when we see climate crisis, when we see floods and droughts, when we see conflict that then leads to displacement. And very often, unfortunately, that can be exacerbated by gender-based violence as well. But it's also so clear, as I said before, that when it comes to the solutions to these issues, that we are not engaged to the extent that we should be. Yesterday in this room we had an event which focused on the role of women in climate mitigation, organised by the group Powerful Women along with the UK government. And it showed that while women often have been amazing leaders in, for example, renewable energy, there are far too few of us in that sector, particularly at the leadership level. But it's also sadly too often clear as well when it comes to adaptation, where our voices must always be heard. And I just spoke with a group of incredible female activists a few minutes ago. Sorry that I was running in now after that. And one of them said to me a phrase that will stick with me: women are the knitting of societies. They pull societies together. They have to be part of the solutions. And when women are able to contribute to adaptation, those measures are far more successful, particularly when we're part of locally led approaches. The kind of grassroots actions that GAGA has been promoting. And I've been really delighted that, just as Debbie said, the UK has been at the heart of some of that Gaga action. We were really delighted to join the Champions Group on grassroots gender just climate financing at COP28. And I'm really pleased to be able to announce here today that the UK will be providing £350,000 to support Gaga for the rest of the financial year. I'm also pleased to report that our programme, which has the acronym phenomenal, but which is also a phenomenal programme, which pioneers a holistic approach to energy and nature-based options in the Middle East and North Africa, is going to be supporting women's engagement in Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon and the occupied Palestinian territories. And that's working with the International Water Management Institute's Al Maruna project. We're providing direct support to women's rights organisations in the region, knowing the power that can be in their hands to drive change in the water sector. And again, I'm pleased to announce today that the UK will be supporting that to the tune of £5.5 million. Our joint support, working with other countries, has also fed into the Global Shield against climate risk. And we're supporting there the Asian Development Bank's provision of extreme heat insurance for women. I don't need to tell this audience that so often it will be women working in the informal sector, working in small-scale agriculture, who might be particularly impacted by extreme heat. We need to make sure that they're supported, and therefore, as part of this project in Bangladesh, the Philippines and Sri Lanka, the UK will again be providing support to the tune of $10 million. But we need to do more. We need to make sure, when it comes to locally led adaptation, that women and girls' voices are taken on board, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because it's the smart thing to do as well. And I've seen this myself time and again since I've been the Minister for Development for the UK over just a few months since this July. I saw it myself, for example, in Indonesia, when I met incredible women forest rangers delivering for their communities, for their families, providing economic development while also protecting nature. And I also have seen it in the women's rights organisations that I met in South Sudan, doing so much to make sure that communities who have been hammered by flood risk, for example, are supported. So just as with mitigation, let's make sure women's voices are at the heart of locally led adaptation. I know this won't be the end of the conversation. It's part of a long road where we can deliver change, not just for women, but for their communities, for societies, for countries, for our environment, and for our economy too. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister, for setting the scene so well for us and also setting out the vision in terms of the things that we want to see changing. I know you're not able to stay with us for the full session, but thank you so much for spending time here inspiring us. So now I'd like to introduce Amanda Cassia. Amanda is an activist from Altamira in Pará state in Brazil, and Amanda's going to come to the stage. Amanda brings visibility to black feminist issues, anti-racist issues, climate justice. She works very much in Pará state, and she's going to come and share a little bit of her story with us for a couple of minutes.
Boa tarde a todas e todos aqui presentes. Sou Amanda Cássia, do Coletivo de Mulheres Negras Maria Maria, Comunema, do Brasil, do estado do Pará, do município de Altamira, da região da Transamazônica Xingu. Hoje estou vestida aqui com a bandeira do meu estado, onde será a COP30 ano que vem. Sou uma mulher preta, sou mãe, sou esposa, sou filha, e vivo num território onde a exploração dos recursos naturais sofre com megas projetos, com mineração, com agronegócio, e tem um custo irreparável em nossas vidas. O custo irreparável são as ameaças de pistoleiros, ameaças de grandes empresas que vêm e trazem mazelas para as nossas vidas, destruindo o nosso território, a Amazônia, as nossas vivências, as nossas ancestralidades e o Estado também, que se omite na sua grande parte. Eu falei para mim, antes de vir para o encontro, que eu não ia me emocionar, que eu não ia chorar. Mas o chorar não é de fraqueza, não é por ser frágil, mas porque a gente vive na pele toda a exploração, toda a falta de respeito, toda a violação que um ser humano, que um território pode sofrer. Eu sou vítima disso, a minha família, a minha mãe, Mônica Brito, é vítima disso. Então não tem como você não se emocionar, você não falar. Mas eu prometi que eu não ia chorar. Nós carregamos múltiplas formas de discriminação, o machismo, a homofobia, o racismo. E essa contribuição de opressões, essa junção de opressões, ela se transforma em lutas diárias, em lutas de sobrevivência, As nossas lutas na Amazônia, no território da Transamazônica Xingu, que aqui eu estou sendo representada, é de sobrevivência. Nós não queremos ser vistas e nem devemos como meras vítimas. Nós não somos vítimas. Nós somos resilientes, nós somos ativistas, militantes e somos líderes dos nossos territórios e das nossas comunidades. Lutamos por nós, pelas nossas gerações e falamos pelas nossas ancestralidades. Precisamos escutar, precisamos dar lugar de fala às guardiões, às defensoras, às protetoras dos territórios, das comunidades, da Amazônia. Escutar as suas experiências de como fazer justiça climática. Nós temos histórias de luta, de resistência e de solidariedade. Nos organizamos, formamos rede de apoios e tomamos a frente na defesa não apenas dos nossos direitos, mas da preservação dos nossos territórios e da biodiversidade da Amazônia. E eu acredito que a mudança ela pode começar de agora, começar daqui, desse local de fala. Precisamos elevar as vozes das mulheres negras, das comunidades que ali o nosso território, que a Amazônia abraça. Precisamos ouvir as vozes das ribeirinhas, das extrativistas, das pescadoras, das mulheres das florestas, dos rios, do campo, da cidade, da periferia. E só assim, ouvindo, colocando essas mulheres no campo de discussões e decisões, podemos começar aí a diferença. Podemos começar aí elevar. E fazer isso vai ser um impacto positivo para as nossas vidas. Mas estaremos também contribuindo para um futuro mais justo e mais sustentável para todos e todas. Nós queremos a floresta em pé. Nós sabemos fazer o desenvolvimento sustentável. Nós não queremos e não vamos aceitar. Vamos continuar recebendo ameaças, se for para colocar desenvolvimento que seja para acabar com as nossas vivências, para acabar com o território. Nós vamos para o enfrentamento. E que esse diálogo, que esse meu lugar de fala que eu estou aqui hoje e de escuta também, não seja só um apenas, que não fique só aqui, mas que seja um ponto de partida para ações significativas, que honrem as lutas das mulheres negras e de toda a diversidade da Amazônia. E que possamos juntos avançar para um futuro onde a justiça climática e a igualdade de gênero caminhem de mãos dadas. Muito obrigada.
Thank you so much to Amanda for speaking so passionately about what's happening on the ground and the real life, and again, a real call to action that I think sets the scene for the discussion that we're going to have today. So Amanda, muito obrigada. Thank you so much. I'm going to introduce our panel now. It's time to hear from another collection of voices, and to begin, I'm just going to say hi to Maria Amalia Sousa, founder. Give everybody a wave, Maria Amalia. Maria is founder of the Casa Socio-Environmental Fund from Brazil. Maria Amalia has spent 40 years focused on getting philanthropic funding out to community grassroots groups, and we're going to hear from you in a little while about how that's been working and what you're learning as you go through that process. Secondly, I want to introduce Wanun Permbibun. Wanun is the Executive Director at Climate Watch Thailand, and Climate Watch Thailand works across adaptation and mitigation, really focused on actions around climate justice, respectfulness of human rights and inclusivity. So we look forward to hearing from you as well, Wanun. Thirdly, everybody please say hello to Joy Haley-Mantali. Joy is the founder of the Green Girls platform from Malawi, and Joy works to achieve equality for women and girls on environmental issues. Molibwanji, Ndilibwino. Fourthly, we have Savannah. Hi, Savannah. Lovely to have you. Savannah is the Executive Director of Elas Plus, which is a feminist, anti-racist, social and environmental justice fund from Brazil, who I believe works with Amanda as well in some of those interactions. So we're really grateful to you for being here today. And then finally, we have Gerard Howe, my colleague from the UK government. Gerard is the head of adaptation, nature and resilience at the UK's Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office. So please, a round of applause for the panel. I'm really excited that we've got you all here today. Now, our focus today is going to be around locally led adaptation with a gender-just approach. So we want to hear, the whole point of pulling together such a brilliant panel is to really hear the voices of the grassroots activists and really think about the organisations that are working at grassroots level to implement local gender-just climate solutions, as well as hearing the evidence about how channeling support and resources to these feminist movements is a tool which is critical and central to driving locally led adaptation. So that's a little bit of a scene setter that lets you know what we're going to focus on. If I may, I'm going to turn first to Savannah. Savannah, can I make sure you've got a microphone? And if not, I will find you one. Have you got a microphone? Yep, super. So Savannah, can you get us started by talking to us? As I said, you're working in a women's fund, so you have a lot of experience of how the funding is driving. Can you talk to us about how women's funds support gender-just climate solutions in practice? So practically, how is this helping drive forward locally led adaptation, and how are you collaborating with other environmental funds like Fundo Casa to support the community-based organizations? Over to you, Savannah.
Bom, boa tarde. Sou Savana Brito, diretora executiva do Elas Mais. Doar para Transformar é um fundo de mulheres no Brasil, e como fundo de mulheres fazemos parte de várias redes e alianças, entre outros fundos de mulheres e também com outros fundos de filantropia no Brasil. O Elas Mais é um fundo que existe, que foi criado há 24 anos, quase 25. No próximo ano a gente celebra 25 anos de atuação. E são 25 anos que o Elas está caminhando por um motivo, né, que pode parecer muito óbvio, mas fazer isso acontecer é toda uma caminhada que em algum momento tem que partir de algum lugar. Então, parte do ecossistema feminista mesmo, né? 5 ativistas, 24 anos atrás, observando o campo, né, dos ativismos feministas, das organizações, perceberam, né, quanta dificuldade, quantos obstáculos para acessar recursos, né? As mulheres sempre foram excluídas ou tiveram assim, muitas restrições a financiamentos, né? Então, foi assim que o Elas foi criado, a partir de ativistas. E eu estou falando falando isso por quê? Eu estou falando isso para dizer da importância de ser parte do ecossistema, porque ser parte desse ecossistema feminista é o que nos dá a legitimidade. Não é uma legitimidade que eu estou falando porque eu acho isso, mas é uma legitimidade que a gente escuta dos próprios movimentos que a gente apoia, que o Elas apoia, as organizações, né, elas nos conferem essa legitimidade. Então, a gente constrói um caminho de confiança mútua, né, que parte do modo como a gente opera, do modo como o Fundo Elas e como os outros fundos de mulheres trabalham para fortalecer as organizações lideradas por mulheres, mulheres cis, trans e de outras transidentidades. Isso significa, bom, num campo em que os acessos aos recursos são extremamente burocratizados, e isso posso dizer, inclusive, a partir de dados. O Elas lançou uma pesquisa agora em 2024, uma pesquisa que foi feita com a participação de 1.280 organizações lideradas por mulheres no Brasil, de mais de 500 municípios de todo o território nacional, e 97% dessas organizações disseram que enfrentam obstáculos para acessar recursos, e que esses obstáculos, a maior parte delas, apontaram para obstáculos voltados para a burocracia desses financiamentos. A gente observa que os financiamentos, especialmente os financiamentos climáticos, eles são muito focados em níveis de escala e, às vezes, até observamos muitas falsas soluções sendo financiadas amplamente, enquanto a gente entende assim, que a conta, de alguma forma, não fecha, né? As mulheres e essas comunidades tradicionais, indígenas, quilombolas, periféricas, mulheres negras, elas são lideranças. A maior parte das soluções que estão sendo criadas e conduzidas nos territórios tem mulheres à frente. E elas são protetoras dos territórios, do clima, da biodiversidade. O Brasil, nós temos 6 biomas e as mulheres estão em todos eles criando soluções de adaptação e outras, mas elas são as mais afetadas, desproporcionalmente afetadas. E não são as que estão causando esse problema, são as que menos estão provocando problemas, pelo contrário, são as que estão criando soluções e recebendo menos financiamento. Então, a conta não fecha e por isso existem fundos como o Elas, como o Fundo Socioambiental Casa, e como outros diversos fundos de mulheres, que estão pensando, que estão criando essas estratégias, essas metodologias, desenvolvendo capacidades para mobilizar os recursos e fazer com que esses recursos cheguem, com que eles possam fortalecer as ações dessas mulheres direto no campo, né, nos seus territórios, a partir das visões delas, com flexibilidade, baseado na confiança de que nós acreditamos que elas são as protagonistas, são as que melhor conhecem tanto os problemas que elas estão enfrentando por causa das questões das mudanças climáticas, quanto as soluções que podem direcionar para uma justiça climática, né, para formas de alcançar justiça de gênero e climática nos territórios. E, bom, como parte desse ecossistema feminista e desse ecossistema de filantropia, nós temos muitas alianças, redes, e assim como fazemos parte da Comoá, que é uma rede de filantropia brasileira, da qual também faz parte o Fundo Casa, e aí nós construímos várias parcerias. Nós somos parte de uma aliança entre fundos no Brasil, que é o Fundo Casa, o Fundo Elas e o Fundo Brasil de Direitos Humanos. Nessa aliança, nós estamos fazendo esforços para colaborar com uma participação mais forte do Brasil, tanto nós enquanto fundos, mas também as organizações da sociedade civil, nesses espaços como a COP, Climate Week e tantos outros que estão discutindo a justiça climática nesse momento, e também fazendo o apoio direto para essas comunidades, apoios para ações de médio e longo prazo, mas também as emergenciais. Um exemplo concreto do que a gente tem feito juntos e que também traz aí Gaga como um elemento de fortalecimento que estrategicamente, né, tem agregado, Fizemos recentemente um apoio para comunidades, é um comitê que reúne aproximadamente 40 movimentos, diferentes movimentos no sul do Brasil, região que foi afetada de maneira desastrosa, mais ou menos no meio desse ano, entre maio e junho. Foram mais de 400 municípios afetados e mais de 190 pessoas que perderam suas vidas, mas as pessoas que ainda estão aqui estão enfrentando impactos, né, muito grandes, e juntos nessa aliança fizemos um apoio para esse comitê que reúne 40 movimentos, e parte dos recursos com que o Elas pôde fazer esse apoio junto com essa aliança são provenientes de Gaga, assim como outros apoios que a gente tem feito, como o coletivo da Amanda. E para citar mais um exemplo antes de finalizar, mencionar, por exemplo, comunidades pesqueiras, mulheres pescadoras que têm realizado um plano comunitário que visa construir resiliência para toda a comunidade que está em território que é afetado frequentemente por alagamentos, por enchentes. Então, é um pouco essa forma que a gente faz o trabalho, com flexibilidade, fazendo com que os recursos possam chegar de fato aos territórios e a partir do protagonismo do que as pessoas e as mulheres que estão nos territórios estão demandando e direcionando sobre como fazer. Obrigada.
Super, Savannah, thank you very much. So some key messages I heard there were about giving these groups the first step, the importance of mutual trust, and women being the main characters because they know what's needed on the ground. So thank you very much, Savannah, for setting the scene. If I may, I'm going to turn to another piece of the Brazilian ecosystem and ask Maria Amália, as the founder of Fundo Casa, which, as I said, is an alliance of socio-environmental funds and a partner for Gaga since 2016. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you work as a funding mechanism for community-based organisations, and just talk to us a little bit about the flow of funds? And if I may, I'm going to give you 3 minutes to see if you can cover off some of that.
I will try. Can you hear me? So I guess I don't need this now. Well, first of all, Casa has a very similar track record. We were actors in the field for 20 years prior. That's why I've been doing this for 40. Looking at the landscape of philanthropy, and even the ones that were being built to protect major ecosystems like the forests and rivers on the planet. And we kept observing that all that money that usually comes from northern-based countries, because the concentration of wealth is much bigger. Brazil has a lot of money concentrated in a few hands, but it doesn't land into society for this type of work. So we were watching and learning about philanthropy abroad, and we realized that, probably for obvious reasons, people know each other and that they're more comfortable putting money in similar institutions that are run from the global north to try to solve these kinds of problems. The question is, you can't save the Amazon or any forests or any biomes from outside. It has to be from inside. There is no way, and I can be very blunt about this, if we want to have the biodiversity-rich places on this planet still alive, we need to put money in the hands of the people who are from those places, who have been taking care of these places for decades, centuries, millennia. They are the only ones that have the answer. They have the science. And we already know that because the only places are still standing, right, the forests, or that are still intact, are the places where you have these kinds of people protecting them. And they have been protecting these places with their lives and no money for way too long, or too little money. Still, the landscape is that most of the money still goes to northern-based, a handful of NGOs, INGOs, maybe some national NGOs, and it doesn't land. And that's the reason that we as actors, activists in the field, realized that if we didn't come together and figured out a system that created a bridge and a buffer, that we could mobilize resources and take all the complexities. And we are very good at that. We're very good managers. We have top auditors. We have transparency, accountability. We've been doing this for a very long time, and we can make thousands of grants together. We actually make millions of dollars in grants, and it is not even 30% of the demand of the that we get. And we have all that mapped. We have publications that demonstrate that communities like hers actually can take money. They know how to manage, which is the other, breakthrough. Communities actually have the capacity. Maybe you need to bring the tools as well, and we need to make sure they succeed. And that's what we do as local funds. We use local currencies, and that's the only way to reach communities that have been historically excluded. So all of that we've learned along the years, we decided to share with other funds across other areas. So we helped, Casa Fund developed a very flat, horizontal model of relationship, and we shared with our colleagues in other countries, and we have some of them here. So we helped to actually set other activist funds in Bolivia, Peru, Colombia, Ecuador, Mozambique. We had partners in Central America, Mexico, Southeast Asia, Africa. We decided to create an alliance. So we actually are founders of this alliance you just mentioned, co-founders, socio-environmental funds of the Global South. And many of our funds have had very strong relationships with some of these northern organizations, like Both Ends, like Mama Cash, who are the leaders of Gaga. So they came together. We already knew each other for a very long time, so the landscape was already there. Once they were able to tap into large resources, a few million euros back in 2016, and another, not a few, a lot of, maybe close to 40 million euros, instead of going out and figuring out, oh, what are we going to do with this now? Are we going to go to the countries, hire local people, hire or take program officers? They didn't need to do any of that. The relationships were already there. All they did was channel that resource to all of the funds, 26 funds, to 40 countries, because we are already doing this for a long time. The thing is, most funders, and most even bilateral funders, they don't know about that. They don't know us. Somehow we remain invisible, and I think the reason is that, because there is this preconception that we are not trustworthy, that we are not capable. So when we hear from bilaterals that they have millions, they decide to put, we have to go there and build their capacity. We already have. We already have more than proven capacity. And we have capacity together. And that's why the alliance, and that's what Gaga has been doing, is like making us more visible. And so we really need a lot more money landing in our territories, in our structures, and you see how we collaborate, how we help each other, and how we share knowledge, because that is the only way we're going to be able to change something on this planet. So we actually invite you now, now everybody around the world. We hold the most precious places on this planet that will maintain life for humanity and all beings, and we need help. We can't do this alone, and unfortunately our local resources are not going, so maybe we rely on you as well, but we are all humans after all, right? And we all need to be working on this together.
Maria Amalia, that's such a powerful message. Thank you. So what we heard there, put funding into the hands of the people who are living in the places that need protecting. They know best, and the evidence is absolutely crystal clear globally. We know that indigenous people and local communities are far and away the best custodians, certainly of the forests and of the local places they inhabit. So a really clear message. Thank you so much. We need it, and we are ready, I think, is the message we heard from you. Thank you, Maria Amalia. We're going to change location now, and we're going to move across to Malawi. And we're going to invite Joy to share some brief reflections. As I said, Joy is the founder of the Green Girls platform working on climate adaptation. And really, Joy, what we'd like to hear from you is about how you centre girls and young women's decision-making and priorities into the climate policies and the programs that you're driving in Malawi. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Debbie. That's actually a good question. So for Green Girls Platform, we are a young women-led organization. So everyone working in our organization is below the age of 30. And we started because we wanted to create a space where girls and young women could come together to learn about climate change and find ways and find solutions that work in our context, which is still a challenge. But what we have seen is that when girls come together, when we start talking to each other, and when we have somewhere where somebody is listening and paying attention to our needs, then we can come up with solutions that will actually work because they'll be spearheaded by girls. And some of the things that we do is to just create safe spaces. So we go into a community, we don't bring in any solution, we only bring in a space. So come to the space, talk to each other, listen to each other, and then find solutions. And one thing that we have seen to really work is providing climate education. So not the usual climate education that we have to be in a classroom and teach about climate change. Like this is what climate change is, this is how you adapt, but rather just providing information that this is what's happening. This is why you have to walk longer distances now to fetch firewood. This is why you have to suffer to drink water that is not clean. And this is why your house was washed away. And then they have to listen to that information and come up with solutions that are working. And one good example I would give is we went to a community that had recently been affected by flash floods in Malawi. And most of their houses were washed away, and we said we're here not to bring in solutions or to talk about what you can do about this, but rather just to listen. What is going on? How are you feeling about this? And what can you do? And then by just sitting there and listening to the stories, we could see that the girls didn't fully understand what was going on. Imagine waking up in the morning and your house is gone and you have no idea what happened or how that could actually be something that impacts you. And you don't have to go to school, you have nowhere to play, you can't meet your friends. And so by talking to them, we found that even policymakers, when they're coming up with the solutions, they don't fully engage girls. They don't even engage women, which is also a challenge because girls and young women understand their challenges better and then can come up with solutions that work in their context. Even after a flood, you cannot find any SRHR services that are provided for girls and young women, but they're the ones that need those services. Even after a flood, you can't find shelter that is really equivalent to the shelter that men are getting. And there are some instances where men would rather save goats than their own children because they feel goats would bring more value than trying to save their children. And they're the women and they're the girls that have to do this. And so when we listen to these stories, when we listen to how girls and young women are affected, then we weave stories that can actually help us to advocate for gender-responsive climate policies that work in the context of girls and young women. And one of the things that we're doing is to teach girls about how they can advocate for their own rights, because their stories are better told by themselves, but not by anyone else. And in those safe spaces, we teach them how they can tell their stories in ways that work for them. It could either be with music or writing stories or even just artwork that shows what you're feeling or what you want policymakers to do. And we bring all those stories together and we bring them to policymakers and say, this is what girls need. When we were starting, nobody knew about Green Girls in Malawi. People outside Malawi knew us, but people in Malawi did not even know us. And what we did was trying to weave those stories and bring them to policymakers. And they said, this is really important. We want you to be part of the National Steering Committee on Climate Change to bring in the voices of girls and young women. And by doing that, we have seen that it's working. And that is why some of us are here to advocate at a global level, to tell our stories to policymakers in different rooms. And I'm here negotiating on adaptation. And there are some young women negotiating on finance and some on different issues like gender and climate change, because we want our voices not to be heard only in Malawi, but at a global level, to provide the solutions that will work for girls and young women. And we believe that by doing that, by listening, by being very intentional, we can create solutions that are working and center the priorities of girls and young women.
Fantastic. Joy, thank you so much. That was such an inspirational story to hear from you. And again, the messages I took were create a space for these voices, listen to these voices, invite girls and young women to feel to tell their own stories and create their own. They don't need us to make up the solutions for them. They just need a space and a voice. And it's fantastic to hear you're here doing the adaptation negotiations as well. Good luck. You have your hands full, but I wish you good luck. So we're going to turn now, and you might notice we're beginning to go up the sort of value chain and up the system. But thank you, Joy, for that focus. We're going to turn to you, Wanan, if I may, because you have an awful lot of experience following the global climate finance infrastructure, including the Green Climate Fund. And of course, you work with women-led communities in Thailand to monitor climate finance projects on the ground, as well as promoting gender-just climate solutions. So can you talk to us a little bit, just for 4 minutes, about how you would say we should achieve gender-just climate finance? I mean, that's a toughie, but how should we be doing it? And how can the locally led adaptation principles help us in driving that forward?
Thank you very much, Debbie. Let me also share a few seconds, less than a minute, on the Green Climate Fund projects in my country, in Thailand, and how we see it as in terms of how it's engaging with the women and the local communities in the implementation of the project. Thailand has got 2 projects under the Green Climate Fund, and when we are looking at it, talking to the local communities and the women's communities and women farmers, we found that they don't know anything about the project at all. And then the project was supposed to deliver a lot of adaptation benefits to the women who are farmers. They need to have information in order to strengthen their adaptive capacities. They need to have the warning system so that they know what to grow in the next cropping periods. So those have been really shortfall and lacking. So what the women together, they are starting to monitor the project implementation themselves. It's not us or me or Climate Watch Thailand or other organizations in Thailand to tell them what to monitor. They told themselves together what they want to monitor. And what they chose to monitor is to monitor the food security in the farm. So what has been coming from their initial monitoring on that project, on that initiative on the ground, was the project was going to introduce the newly and highly advanced technologies in order to grow rice while not producing methane. So growing rice without producing methane. So the way it has to be is to change, to use another technology. And that technology is to level the land, the paddy fields. And with that technology, you have the How am I? This is. Thank you. So with that technology, it's going to level up the land, the paddy fields. So imagine when you are looking into the paddy field. I don't know whether you have seen the paddy fields. The paddy fields is not just only growing rice alone. There are small ponds here, small ponds there, and that ponds are the source of fish, the source of the food for the women, for the community. Fish and crabs would be around that ponds. And then in some of the paddy fields, you have a big trees, a bush, and that bush is also the sort where the ants, red ants would be coming and lay eggs. And then you have red ant eggs. So that is also the diversity of the food for women, for the household. It's not just only growing rice, but by using the technology promoted by the Green Climate Fund project, that would have to be gone. So because it's going to produce the rice only, and that rice is with less methane or no methane emission. So imagine what's going to be happening to women and their households. Food would be already affected, and the diversity of food is also affected. So from that, we have learned that this is not really just for the climate finance, and it's not gender just, it's not women just at all. So what we are trying to do is to challenge that project together with the women to say that And you have to come and talk to the women farmers. You have to come and look at the context of growing rice. Rice is not a commodity for the communities. It's a livelihood. It's a culture. So by turning the rice, which is a culture, and the livelihood into commodity, it is going to be a big burden to the communities and to the women. So that's how we come up with that in terms of monitoring of the GCF project, to share in terms of the experience of that Green Climate Fund project. And then how would we see that it should help in terms of engaging the women and also the other genders into the locally-led adaptation? So it has to come up with women in the center, bringing women into the discussion. It's not someone coming and show and present what should be done, what are the best adaptation strategies for them. It's them, the women in the community, who have the right to say what is best for them. So they have to make their own choices. They have to have the self-determination of what they want to grow. It's not about someone else coming to them, and that if you are growing this rice with these technologies, then we will buy your product and your rice. So we and the women in the communities have the right to say what they want to grow. And they want to grow that because it's more resilient, it's more nutrient in the rice growing. So that's for the household, and that's for the caring of the community. So that's for now. Thank
Amazing. Wanan, thank you very much. So I think we're getting a really strong set of themes coming through about voice and space and opportunities to hear from local level and invite local people to really shape the interventions that are going on and to be masters of their own destiny in terms of shaping these interventions. I'm going to turn now to Gerard. Gerard, thanks so much. Again, we're moving up the value chain, and we'd like to hear a little bit about a government perspective. Can you talk to us about how the UK is aligning its work on locally led adaptation with its ambitions on gender equality, and how this comes together in terms of supporting local women's rights organisations? Just for 3 minutes, thank you.
Thanks very much, Debbie. And can I start by just saying how honoured I am as a member of the UK government to have such a great panel here and to be graced with this knowledge and perspective. So thank you all very much indeed for that. And when I asked Naomi from Gaga, what should we do? I mean, as the UK government and as an individual seeking to be an ally to the causes and the rights of the women that have been talking today, she said, listen. And I think that's exactly right. And I hope that that's what we've been doing today. But we need to do more than that too. We also need to act. So we have a responsibility to listen and a responsibility to act in this intersection of climate change impacts, locally led action, and the continuing struggle and drive for gender equality and women's rights. And I wanted to very briefly just set out 2 starting points for the UK government on this, and both have been reinforced really strongly today. But the first is that to be effective, adaptation needs to be locally led, contextual and specific. As Amanda said so powerfully, we are the leaders, you are the leaders, and we need as funders and supporters to recognise that. The capability is there, again, as we've been reminded today, because it is contextual and specific. And Amanda, you talked about the intersectional disadvantages and discrimination you face and your power to respond to that. And I thought that was extremely powerful. So that's the first starting point. The locally led is the way to create lasting, effective work. And the second point is that as our starting point, we have a responsibility as climate actors to be deliberately seeking transformation in the structures and the norms and the systems that are creating disadvantage that has been described today. Because if we do not deliberately seek that transformation, we reinforce the existing discrimination, inequality and disadvantage faced by women, girls and other groups. And we have to take that really seriously. The UK has a gender equality duty that applies to all of its work overseas in aid, where we have to take due consideration of gender equality, and that's part of that. So we need to be deliberate, mindful and meaningful. And Joy, you talked about the need to be intentional. So thank you for that. I think we do need to be intentional. And just very briefly, if I may, Debbie, We're really proud that the UK was the first country to sign up to the locally led adaptation principles. And it's no accident that principle number 2 of those principles is to address structural inequalities faced by women and other groups. And we take that really seriously. But we need to breathe more life into those locally led adaptation principles. We need to make them feel real for all of our colleagues on this panel and beyond. And we take that really seriously. And to support those, we support the Life AR program, which is an LDC-led initiative, which is aiming to get at least 70% of climate finance to be invested behind local communities' priorities. Working with a set of countries and being led by our LDC colleagues is really important. And on the second front, we absolutely recognise the importance and our ambition to partner with local organisations and crucially women's rights organisations more broadly and in the face of the climate crisis. And that helps us to support UK policy and positions going forward. And one example of that is the UK's support to the Equality Fund Partnership, a flagship programme of £38 million to support women's rights organisations. And crucially, that funding is flexible, unearmarked and unrestricted. So it's about enabling women's rights organisations to set their own agenda and to get behind and support that. It's also multi-year, which we hope supports that. So to conclude, we take the responsibility to work at this intersection incredibly seriously. As Minister Dodd said, we place climate and nature at the very heart of what we do, and we place women's rights and gender equality at the very heart of what we do. Holding those two together is absolutely central to what we need going forward. And we want to be deliberate, we want to be meaningful, and we want to be intentional on that going forward. And above all, we must listen to the voices we've heard today and to act on those. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you so much, Gerard. So you've heard a lot about what the UK government is doing, and as Gerard said, we've got some watchwords there: to be deliberate, to be meaningful, and to be intentional, as Joy's encouraged us to do. So we're very nearly at the end of our session, and thank you all for staying because it's been such a rich conversation. And I have to say, it's absolutely fantastic to hear voices of practitioners and people who are doing this in the field in real life every day, dealing with actually the barriers and the blockages and trying to unblock them for local people and to give voice to those who need to be at the centre of this story. My quick fire round for you all, and I'm going to invite Gerard to start and then to pass the microphone down, is to ask each of you, and forgive me, I'm going to be a little bit cruel, you've got one sentence each only because we're quite tight on time, but I'm going to ask you if you could draw out each one key feature of gender just locally led adaptation. So we're going to create a recipe and we're going to come along the line and you're going to tell us, and it's okay if you repeat somebody else because that just means that thing is really, really important, but I'm going to ask each of you for one component that is crucial for creating gender just locally led adaptation. Gerard, please kick us off.
Recognise capacity and perspectives as credible and at the heart of everything we do of local communities.
Super. Capacity.
As mulheres são diversas, são plurais, são muitas mulheres, muitas formas de ser mulher. E nos seus territórios as mulheres conhecem por que tipo de situações, problemas e que soluções cada mulher pode passar e do que elas precisam, sendo meninas, sendo mulheres já em sua fase de envelhecimento ou em qualquer das suas características e especificidades.
Just pause a second, Joy. I'm just going to see if we have got a moment for our translation to catch up with what Savannah said. Just let me see if our translator's able to help us out there. Maybe not. Yes? Has anybody got any translation? It might just be me. Oh, please, please, please. That'd be fantastic. You might need another mic, though, Amalia. Forget. It might be. Did anybody else catch it? I didn't catch it. No. Yeah, I thought it was on Channel 4. Please, Amalia, can you give us a summary?
Well, so she was saying that women are plural, and that we have all kinds of. Well, you actually could translate yourself. Right? women are plural, there's young women, older women, there's specificities for all of us. And you have to take that into account if you're going to change something for all of us. Summary.
Amazing. Amalia, thank you. Joy, over to you.
Right, so it has to be something that listens and provides a platform for girls and young women and women in all their forms to express themselves and to be really intentional in coming up with solutions.
I think it's actually my headset that's gone down rather than anything else. But please, Wandan, please.
Thank you. So while adaptation and also impacts of climate change is quite uncertain, so we have to make sure that all the adaptation has to respond to the uncertainties in the future as well. So I would guess that it is a bit also the combination of scientific knowledge and also traditional and local wisdoms together in terms of the adaptation.
Super. And Amalia, over to you.
Women are the leaders of communities. They are the mothers, the grandmothers, the aunts. They cook, they plant, they fish. They have already been the leaders of the change that we want to see in this world. But they've been doing this without any support. And usually, even from their communities, they need to rise in among the men, right? They have been. They've been working, and it's very visible to all of us that women are leading the process to protect this planet. So all we need to do is resource them.
Ladies, thank you so much. Gerard, thank you so much. So we've had such a rich discussion. Forgive me, my headset failed me just at the very last minute, so I didn't catch everything, all those pearls of wisdom, but I know you in the audience will have done. We've heard so much today about listening, about creating spaces for women, about not injecting solutions, but instead empowering and providing opportunities for women to shape their local environment and the local interventions. We've heard about the importance of mutual trust. We've heard about the importance of contextual specificity, of building capacities and building local perspectives, about being able to deal with uncertainties, because uncertainties will come, and the importance of being intentional and having the responsibility to seek transformation in the norms and the structures that currently lock in the injustices in the world. So thank you so much for such a powerful panel. Thank you, Amanda, for your words at the start. We've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you to all of you for joining.